Coming up in this episode, definitely worth a browse. Possibly equivalent in China to 20 years worth of wages. But they all came out gagging.
That's called a hanging. That's just the chances of the weather, unfortunately, and that's
Good morning. It's a bit of a change in weather today pattern. It's supposed to go a bit rainier. The back end of the cyclone weather front is sort of hitting, so the winds are going to be picking up a bit apparently. But we've been here for 3 nights, so we're going to move on today. So it's been a great sight. We've enjoyed just stopping actually. So again, it's important on any of these trips that I think with campervans is that you just take time out at times. So yeah, we're just going to tidy up a bit before we go. We've got things to do. We've got rubbish showers, make the most of that because we're going to go and do probably 2 or 3 nights of free camping now for the next few days. So I'm going to top up with water, do a bit of I've got some wastewater to dump at the local dump station, so we're going to do that.
Well, today we continue to track towards the east side of the mountain ranges, and we're targeting a stop at Arrowtown, which is just before you get to Queenstown. And as ever, there's plenty of stop-offs on the way, and no more quirky than the Bradrona just outside Bradrona. And yes, they are bras. Now, this is in support of breast cancer, and it's become a modern day attraction to draw attention and support to this great cause. Now, unfortunately, I have packed light for the trip and I can't afford to leave one. Now, just on from Bradrona is a tiny township of Bradrona, where a stop for a hot chocolate and a pastry at a small general store is most welcome. The small township was established as a gold rush location in the 1860s on the banks of the small river of the same name. And a few buildings have survived, and a quirky shop at the old schoolhouse is definitely worth a browse. And the remaining drive sees us cut through mountain valleys and we pull over at the scenic Crown Range Lookout car park. And this has a view down towards Queenstown and Lake Wakatipu. And as we descend, as ever, we pull over many times to let faster cars pass us as we're in no rush.
That's a long way to fall.
Oh yes, Stu says, can you see the airport down on the left as we're driving in? And we eventually park up at the historic but really popular gold town of Arrowtown. And we first head towards what was a small Chinese community that was established here during the gold rush era. And there's a small walk up the gully which was close to their mine workings. In 1866 there was only about 200 Chinese miners that lived in the Otago area, where the town sits. But by 1874 immigration figures showed that this was to have risen to 3,500. By 1885 the Arrowtown settlement had grown to consist of about 10 huts and a large social hall and at least 2 stores. Now, in the early years of the gold rush, many Chinese gold miners returned home after making around £100 or so. And this was possibly equivalent in China to 20 years' worth of wages. So you can understand why it attracted the adventurous. And as you can imagine, life was harsh, and unfortunately they were often harassed and discriminated against. By the end of the century, mining had dwindled, and the community was split apart. We then take a walk up the main high street where many buildings have been preserved and restored. And again, this was a town that was built on the back of a gold rush. And it's now, as you can see, a really popular tourist location with bars and cafes to fulfil the demands. And at the far end of the town there was a small market for us to browse around, with local crafts and food stalls. Well, unfortunately it's time for us to move on, and we've decided not to visit Queenstown on this trip, which I'm sure may be on your itinerary if you're ever going to New Zealand. Now, there's no real reason that we avoided it other than time, and we understand that it's quite a buzzing place with lots to do for tourists. And we've decided to head for a free dock campsite at the southern part of Lake Wakatipu. Again, this turned out to be a really busy site, but it's a large site to accommodate the motorhomes and campervans which find places to park in amongst the trees, which is exactly what we do. Camping cars seem really popular in New Zealand, and many with clever storage and cooking facilities out the back. And the following morning sees a really great low cloud formation over the lake. And this is the view looking further south down the lake.
What? The woman in front of me.
Stu recalls his early morning visit to the on-site long drop toilets that he tried out, which resulted in a queue of people. But they all came out gagging due to the state and the smell, so yuck, not for me, thank you. Today we want to get to Mount Cook as the weather is supposed to be closing in, and we really want to see this iconic location in all its beauty. Unfortunately, today is one of those days where we need to first drive about 4 hours. And the first port of call is to find a place to cook up breakfast and set ourselves up for the day. Now we pull over at the Carwero Bungee Centre, where I believe you can also park overnight in the car park. And this historic bridge is now the theatre backdrop for those who wish to throw themselves off attached to a piece of elastic. Now Stu has had to pass on this due to his bad back, and I must admit in my head I was seriously contemplating it, but having watched them, my sensible head took over. As part of the gold rush and getting easy access to the gold fields, a bridge over the gorge was needed and it was built. The bridge was designed by Harry Higginson. The suspension bridge is 42 metres high with a 120 metres long span. In recent years, in 1963, all the traffic was moved to a new highway bridge that you can see in the distance on State Highway 6. And as usual, we've got here early and they're just setting up for the day. The safety boat is in place and we just need a few daring people to give us a photo opportunity. And soon they came, one by one. Some seem to bounce more than others, and I can only presume it's a weight-based reason.
So it was probably mid-morning when we left the Bungy sites, because it was really just getting set up when we left. It was still quite quiet. There was still a few people there, but they were starting to come in for the day by the looks of it.
Here we go.
I was like, should I try it? Should I not? And I would do a bungee jump if I could jump feet first. But the fact you have to, I know I'd probably dislocate my whole body. But I think
that's called a hanging, not a bungee jump.
But the fact that you have to just throw yourself off is just like
I thought you were going to do it at one stage, I have to say, because you seemed to and ah with it, and I was more than happy to come.
It's the closest I've ever come to doing a bungee jump.
I'd have helped you go off the bridge.
I'm sure you would have done.
It's quite a nice area, and they got a nice little bar seating area and all that caff, so you can make a day of it. Yeah. And there's all sorts of walks. I think it's also a place if you want to go walks around the valley, even if you didn't want to do the bungee jumping.
And they also had rafting.
Yes, there was other activities as well. I think there was a zip line as well, I think, down there as well that way, I think, if I remember right. Yeah, so it's a place to go. So we then needed to move on because we wanted to get to Mount Cook, which was a fair distance. I think it was probably another 3 hours on from there. It was quite a way. And the weather was supposed to close in, although it was blue sky when we set off from the Bungy place, and it was tracking inland. So we wanted to try and get to Mount Cook because we wanted to go onto a walk and try and see the glacier when it was, in blue sky and that. So we set off, and I say we were driving through the valleys. It was a really pleasant drive, wasn't it? But it was a different scenery because it was quite arid and dry. So suddenly all these straw colours came across it. Straw colour.
Straw.
Okay.
What's straw?
Straw coloured.
What, like brown?
Yeah.
Okay, I've never heard it referred to like that.
We set off for Mount Cook, and it was straw coloured.
Straw coloured. Brown.
Okay, it was brown. No, it wasn't brown. It was light brown.
Okay.
Light brown.
Like straw.
Okay. Anyway, it was dry, arid, and it was different, wasn't it?
It was.
I don't think it's when we spoke to somebody, it's not normally that dry. I think that again they've had a bit of a dry period place inland where they've had rain other places. So it was a bit of a weird climate they've been having just recently there. So that took us a few hours of just driving there, and we get to Lake. I'm going to say it's probably wrong. Pukaki, I think it's Pukaki, which is just before the drive up to Mount Cook area. But again, you could just tell it was a glacier lake. It was just this brilliant, and I think it's always brilliant in the sunshine as well. You get this turquoise colour bouncing off the lake. It was, because you drive all the way up by the side of it, which was a fantastic drive up there. And we decided again we were going to go Freedom site, but we just went for the easy option, went for a campsite because we wanted to do some laundry as well. So we got ourselves booked in. In fact, the place there, you can actually take helicopter rides from there up to have a look at Mount Cook. So if you wanted to go from a helicopter ride, you could actually get it from the campsite. It should be a great
experience. It was expensive.
So we decided to obviously get that. It was one of those sites where it was so big you could park anywhere you want. So we had a powered site, and there was the shower blocks, facilities, usual stuff, and laundry facilities, all the normal stuff you'd expect. But that's where we got into parking nightmare in our family. I think is a bit of a...
It runs in the family.
I think because nobody told us to go to a certain pitch, we then... My brother there was hesitant. I was hesitant trying to find the right pitch. We just seemed to go round and round and round. There's 4 pitches close together, but I don't suppose we'll have too many people boys. It's quite close into the branches. You'll be hitting the branches when you get back.
Besides that, we go round the corner into beyond these other set of trees.
Okay, all right, whatever. This is okay, right? This is okay. Fine. This is all right. This is all right. Reverse, reverse, reverse. Reverse. Tell them we found one around the far side.
There's a little spot round here.
But anyway, we eventually found a place which was more than adequate, to be perfectly honest. So we quickly jump in the other van and go off to further up the valley, up to because we want to go on this what was called the Hooker Valley Walk. So that's where if you want to go and wild camp, freedom camp, it's right up by the Hooker Valley Walk. There's a dock site up there that you can go and book into. So we get there, and the weather looked as if it was going to turn, but we went forward, and I seem to recollect it was about an hour there and an hour back.
Yeah.
You were pretty tired.
I turned into Kevin.
Yeah.
At the back. I was so exhausted because I was on a bit of a dip with my health.
Your energy levels were low that day.
Yeah, and oh my God, it's one of the, and it shouldn't have been a hard walk, but it was. But I was determined to get there.
And a hard walk isn't, it wasn't like
No.
that. It was just a long walk, along through the valley and that, across various rivers and that to go across.
A beautiful walk.
Yeah, and it was just that it was, and it was
hot.
2 hours of walk. It was humid as well, wasn't it?
Yeah, I didn't realise it was such a long walk. I still would have gone.
But it was a nice walk. There was several bridges you have to go over, and I have to keep encouraging Jane to go. It's around the next corner. It's around the next corner. But you're surrounded by the mountains going up either side, and you can see the snow on top. So I can imagine as you get into the winter there, it would be absolutely. It would actually transform itself and that. And there was quite a few people on the walk, wasn't there?
Yeah,
and that we passed
people.
and that.
Kids, loads of kids, like little ones this size doing the walk.
Coming past you.
Yeah.
We finally get there, and unfortunately, just as we got there, the sort of the weather really closed down. It comes to sort of misty rain, and the cloud hid Mount Cook, so we couldn't see the top of Mount Cook. Really frustrating.
Yeah.
Mission accomplished. Mount Cook, I think, is over there behind all that grey glacier at the end of the valley there, all covered in shale on top. You can see the bluey green. Really windy.
Yeah, so we could see the glacier at the end there, and you could see where it all come down through the valley. And there was a bit of a small iceberg had broken off because the icebergs break off, and because of the way the wind comes down the valley, it pushes the icebergs down to the far end of the lake. So we could see one very small one that was there and that. But we'd achieved it. That was our mission, was to go on the goal and that. So unfortunately, it's one of those ones where you go there and go back.
Yeah, they sang all the way back to try and get me to jolly along.
Anything to just keep it going and that. Yeah. So we finally get back. We went back to the campsite fairly tired. We had obviously tea, etc. So it was a good day. Unfortunately, we just didn't see Mount Cook in all its glory. No. But that's just the chances of the weather, unfortunately, and that. So.
Yeah. Morning arrives and we have brilliant sunshine. And it looks like the top of Mount Cook may lose those clouds.
Turn left.
And it's shame we're not going on that walk today. However, as we drive, our luck is in and we pull in to see the valley and the mountain. And wow, wow, wow.
We're just heading out from Mount Cook, and the weather's fantastic, although we thought it was going to be pretty bad. We really haven't had that bad weather. And Mount Cook, you can see in the distance there, is completely clear this morning. So it's great to get some shots. We just come down to the end of the lake. I think it's Pukeaki Lake, I think it is. Probably said that all wrong. But we're just down at the lake. We're heading towards Christchurch, so we've got a bit of a 4-hour trek this morning.
Well, we'll leave it there for now, having ticked one of those big bucket items of Mount Cook.